Does a fianchetto affect a pawn storm? Have you ever wondered how a fianchetto might change the dynamics of a pawn storm in chess? Let's break it down and see how these two concepts interact on the board. First, let's clarify what we mean by a fianchetto. This is a strategy where a player develops their bishop on a long diagonal, usually placing it on g4 white or g7 for black. This setup can provide strong support for the king and prepare for aggressive pawn movements. Now, a pawn storm involves pushing pawns aggressively towards the opponent's position, aiming to create weaknesses or break through defenses. So, how does a fianchetto influence a pawn storm? One key aspect is the structure of the pawns on the board. When a player chooses to fianchetto, they often play moves like g3 or g6. This creates a somewhat rigid pawn structure that can either help or hinder a pawn storm. If both players fianchetto on the same side, it can make a pawn storm less effective. The stable pawn chains can resist aggressive advances. Next, consider piece development and control. Fianchettoing a bishop is often about controlling important diagonals and supporting other pieces. This can indirectly impact a pawn storm by ensuring that pieces are well placed to either support the storm or counter it. However, the fianchetto itself does not directly add to the momentum of a pawn storm. Now, let's talk about vulnerability. Positions with a fianchettoed bishop are generally less exposed to piece attacks. However, they can be more vulnerable to pawn storms. The defensive structure can become weak if the opponent successfully advances their pawns, challenging the bishop's diagonal control. In practical terms, if you are facing an opponent with a fianchetto, launching a pawn storm can be a strategic move. This is especially true if they have castled on the same side as the fianchetto. It can exploit weaknesses created by the bishop's position. Timing and coordination of your pieces are essential for this strategy to work effectively. Understanding how a fianchetto affects a pawn storm is important for both attacking and defending. It shows the need to consider the overall position and the potential risks and benefits of advancing pawns against a fianchettoed bishop. So, the next time you see a fianchetto on the board, think about how it might influence your pawn storm strategy.